Okay, who here hasn't been to space? Why? You better not throw up on my ship.
Approaching jump in 3, 2, 1.
You guys all know that Ryan Coogler has come out in the past and talked about the script a little bit. He's not gone in depth and with things with the script, but he has talked about the script. He used words like it's a T'Challa vehicle. It was heavy centered around T'Challa's psyche and things like that. The child, though, was never mentioned. Now, again, maybe the child wasn't mentioned because I can't remember if that interview came out before Wakanda Forever or if it came out after Wakanda Forever. However, the child was not mentioned. Now, either the child was not mentioned because he didn't want to spoil the post-credit scene if it did come out before, that interview came out before Wakanda Forever, or what I've been saying, and again, I have no evidence for anything. I don't work for Marvel. I'm not in their writing rooms. The child was just never a part of the original plans. But, again, I digress from that. But he talked about that. He's called it a T'Challa vehicle, called it centering around T'Challa, focusing on the character study. He called it a character study of T'Challa. Now, let's move to the most recent things he said, again, to the New York Times about this. In the interview, Coogler broke down how the first Chadwick Boseman-led Black Panther 2 already included TJ, T'Challa, and Nakia's son in the story. However, the kid's reveal originally came in the very beginning of the movie. The Black Panther Wakanda Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Toussaint is only shown in the end credit scene of the sequel. Not true. The idea, according to Coogler, was to show how T'Challa had missed the first 5 years of his son's life because he was blipped into dust by Thanos. The filmmaker broke the whole story down. This is what Ryan had to say. And I'm going to go over to what the New York Times said because it's a little more in depth over there. It was absolutely nothing like what we made. Well, it was going to be a father-son story from the perspective of a father because the first movie had been a father-son story from the perspective of a son. In the script, T'Challa was a dad who had this forced 5-year absence from his son's life because of the blip. The first scene was an animated sequence. You hear Nakia telling Toussaint, she says, "Tell me what you know about your father." You realize that he doesn't know his dad. His dad was the Black Panther. He never met him, and Nakia is remarried to a Haitian dude. Then we cut to reality, and it's the night that everybody comes back from the blip. You see T'Challa meet the kid for the first time. Okay, then he said, then it cuts ahead 3 years, and T'Challa is essentially co-parenting. We had some crazy scenes in there. For Chad, man, our code name for this movie was Summer Break. And the movie was about a summer that the kid spends with his dad for his 8th birthday. They had a ritual where they go out into the bush and have to live off the land. But something happens and T'Challa has to go save the world with a son at his hip. That was the movie. And I'm going to move over to, before I give what I have to say, move over to the New York Times and what they had to say here. New York Times, continuing what Coogler said. This film was difficult in ways the only people who made it would know. Coogler said in a recent interview, "There are things we put in there that felt revolutionary, really, that changed the definition of having a good time in a movie like this. The death of Chadwick Boseman, who played the title role in the original film, a noble but untested leader of the fictional African promised land Wakanda, forced a radical reimagining of the franchise. Coogler and Cole had recently sent Boseman a completed first draft of the script when the actor succumbed to a secret bout, the colon cancer." All right, then Coogler said, what were we going to do with the blip? In Marvel's Avengers Infinity War, T'Challa is one of billions of people who suddenly vanish, only to be brought back in the Avengers 5 years later. It was the challenge. It was absolutely nothing like we made. It was going to be a father-son story from the perspective of a father because the first movie had been a father-son story from the perspective of the son. In the script, T'Challa was a dad who had his forced 5-year absence from his son's life. The first scene was an animated. Yeah, we read that, blah, blah, blah. Then it says, then it cuts. Okay, we read that. Then they asked him, Was Namor the leader of the undersea nation Talokan in Wakanda Forever? Still the villain. Coogler said, yeah, but it was a combination. Val, the CA director, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, was more active. It was basically a three-way conflict between Wakanda, the U.S., and Talokan, but it was all mostly from the child's perspective. What? What? In the new version, the opening scene is T'Challa's death. Why did you decide to start there? Cole said, just practically everyone was going to be waiting to see how we dealt with it. So you... Okay. So doing it right up front made sense. Or not doing it at all made sense, but okay. In terms of the character, we needed to introduce a different version of Shuri, T'Challa's sister played by Letitia Wright. We're showing the moment that she becomes a different person than the person we met. She's the smartest person in the world, but she can't save her brother. What does she do? She could save others from dying, but not her brother. Okay. We want to have an emotionally intelligent conversation. It's about the transformative quality of grief and trauma. There's this expectation with emotional trauma that you just need time. Oh, give them a couple weeks off, they'll come back to work to get back to it. But that person is completely different in some ways. You just don't see it because the change isn't visible. T'Challa's death is attributed to an illness, but it seems sudden and inexplicable, which profoundly unsettles Shuri. Why did you make that choice? Then he just goes on to say, we wanted to keep it simple. At the end of the day, what mattered is that she had a self expectation of being able to solve it, and she failed, and we didn't want her to have anywhere to displace her anger. If someone else would have taken T'Challa out, Shuri would have looked for that person. We wanted it to be a situation where the only place she could look was internal. On that last part there where he said the only place that she could look was internal, she told her mother in the film she wanted to burn the world. That's not internal. Didn't her and Namor say something about Namor said something to her about burning the world together? That's not internal. Like what? So let's just break this down from the beginning here really quick. Let's top it from the top. So I'll say this. The fact, and way before Wakanda Forever came out, we all prayed and all hoped, speculated, dreamt that the film would take place during the blip. And from what we know about E-Man and some of his sources that he has, the blip was not even something they discussed. The blip was not even something that popped into their minds. And again, I find that crazy. That one of the most important events in your cinematic universe, that you found a way to insert other places. You didn't forget about them in other projects. But when it came to Black Panther, in a way that you could possibly save T'Challa, somehow the blip, something you've been using all Phase 4, slipped your mind. I find that hard to believe. That is not something they thought about. And if it's not something they thought about, then you need a better creative team in those writers' rooms. Why? Because again, the biggest event that you've been using throughout Phase 4, we saw it in WandaVision. We saw it in Black Widow. We've seen the blip being used to bring characters, obviously to bring characters back that have been blipped. T'Challa was blipped. No one in the writer's room, no one in the room thought to themselves, hey, why don't we take the blip? Why don't we take T'Challa? And why don't we take the story that we're morbidly trying to do, rewrite it, or better yet, just keep what Chadwick had in the original script, because he helped write that, in the original script, and do that, and just make it to where it's a new recasted character of T'Challa coming out of the blip. Could have easily been done. This is a selfish decision you decided not to make. Instead, Ryan Coogler and Nate Moore decided to morbidly force their story that they wanted to tell with their feelings onto the screen. And I've seen some people saying, to Ryan Coogler, because Ryan Coogler also said in this New York Times interview, I'll do it, because he was asked, would you come back? Will you come back for BP3 or other stuff? He said, I'll do it as long as folks have me. And I've seen people replying this, some people saying, nah, because next he's going to kill off Nakia to motivate TJ, because you had to have T'Chaka die to motivate T'Challa. You had to have Njoku die to motivate Killmonger. You had to have Ramonda die to motivate Shuri. So yes, it makes sense to have Nakia die to motivate TJ. But I'd even say this, because that's something that was mentioned here, was that that Nakia is married to a Haitian guy. That's probably one of the first things that was written that I'm like, good. Because get the relationship that should have never been, have her be married to whoever else, let Nakia start to go down her villainous route because she's a villain. Let her go down her villainous route. That way, T'Challa's single. Let her be booed up with whoever the fuck Haitian dude she wants to be booed up with. That way, you can now usher in the Omega level queen mutant that she is, Storm. You can usher in Aurora. You can start to do that. That way you can have the relationship that should have been from the beginning. You go ahead and you take Nakia, you have her be married to the Haitian dude. T'Challa's back. She ain't gonna leave, dude. She been with the dude for 5 years. She's with dude. Now you can start having T'Challa's stories be told the proper way. Now you can have him marry Storm. You can bring in Storm. You've already got Genosha being mentioned in Thunderbolts. So that's getting us closer to the mutants in the MCU, X-Men. So instead of having Nakia as T'Challa's queen, phony queen, you can have the real queen come in. You can have the real queen step in. So I didn't mind that part. I didn't mind that part when they said that. But, one thing I will say too, I still think as much as an idea, because I like this idea. I like this idea better than the Wakanda Forever shit we got. I still say X the kid. I still say X TJ. And it ain't because, oh, Darius, God, you really just hate this kid. No. I really want what Ryan said in the first interview when he talked about the script. It's a character study. It's diving deeper into the character of T'Challa. In Iron Man 2, what's Morgan? We didn't get Morgan in Iron Man 2. We didn't get Morgan in Iron Man 3. We didn't get Morgan in Civil War. We got Morgan in Endgame. After Tony's stories were told, after we delved deep into Tony, after we went on many adventures with Tony, then you ushered in Morgan, which was fine. It was great in Endgame to see Tony dealing with everything he went through in the MCU in the first 3 phases leading up to Endgame. To finally be happy, settled down in a nice, beautiful home out in the country with his wife and his daughter. If you want to insert TJ so damn bad, insert him in the 5th BP, in the 6th BP. Yes, give it time like you gave Tony Stark. I don't know why T'Challa, the T'Challa, has to share screen time when we have not even had the screen time to learn about him. When we first saw him, he shared the screen with everybody in Civil War. When we saw him again, he died in his first film, and we still didn't get to even learn anything about T'Challa in that film. We saw him again in Infinity War, where he opened his borders to the rest of the Avengers to help fight off Thanos. Just to be blipped. We saw him in Endgame come out healthy as fuck, by the way, out of the portal, and help defeat Thanos' army. in any of that, because Profess the Film Fan asked this for me on Twitter because it never gets answered in my comment sections when I ask this on Twitter or YouTube. Within that I just said, what fucking legacy do you see? What legacy do you hear? What stories can you derive from that to give me a long, drawn-out depiction of T'Challa? You can't. You can't. So the fact that the script was still going to have little TJ, again, if you had to do little TJ, do little TJ. But do TJ again in the 5th or 6th film. There's no way he's showing up in BP2 and on top of that going to be on his daddy's hip the whole time. Why is T'Challa taking his son into dangerous places and he knows his son is only 8? Isn't that what the thing just said? The boy just turned 8? So for his 8th birthday, yes, they're going to go live off the land and do the ritual. But after he learns that there's some danger that needs T'Challa, the Black Panther's attention, I'm going to take my son and put my son in harm's way? Again, that's just weird to me. It doesn't make sense. It sounds like some Disney-fied up and away ass shit. It sounds like some shit from Up and Away. They wanted the little boy in Up and Away to get his power so bad so they go fight crime with mommy and daddy. That's weird, bro. Like, why? Why? Let it be T'Challa. By the 5th, 6th film, bring in TJ, then have TJ fight with his daddy then if you just had to do it. But you should have given T'Challa stories first. And again, I like this better. I do. I don't want to sit here and complain and make it sound like, oh, well, Darius, you're just bitching about everything. No. I like this story so much better than killing T'Challa because this is a story that we should have gotten. If you wanted to throw TJ in there, you know what? Your mileage may vary. To each his own. I wouldn't have liked it, but I would have tolerated it and gotten over it a lot faster than you putting the character 6 feet in the ground. So I disagreed with TJ still being in the film in the beginning and within the story. But he also mentioned in the video we talked about, Ryan Coogler and Nate Moore or the cast being involved. We've said every time, take as much time because I want to go down to hear what he just said. When he said, what's that last part he said? There's this expectation with emotional trauma that you just need time. Oh, give them a couple weeks off. They'll come back to work and get back to it. But that person is completely different in some ways. You just don't see it because the change isn't visible. How many times have many recasters in their videos, people on Twitter, wherever, the pro recast crowd, said, take the time you need. But take the time you need turned into just dismiss yourself from not in a disrespectful way, but just dismiss yourself from this franchise. If you can't tell these stories without your feelings being interconnected, step away. It's not about giving them a couple of weeks and they can get back to it. As we understand, time heals all. Like Drake said, but heals where to walk in. Sorry, chill. But you needed that time. It's been 2 years, my brother, and you're still hurt. Rightfully so. As I've said, this is your friend. This is someone you knew. This is someone you looked at as a brother. Someone that you looked up to. Family to you. So rightfully so. After 2 years, you still have every right to still be grieving. But if you couldn't come back and tell this story without your feelings interconnected to it, to morbidly tell Chadwick's death on screen, then you should have stepped away altogether. It's not about just taking a couple 2 weeks. It's not about just getting back to it. It's about understanding that this is a fictional film. It's about understanding the story that you previously started to tell in BP1. That you completely contradicted with this mess of a film of BP2. And then you keep getting out here in interviews and saying what could have been, what should have been, or whatever. And every time Ryan opens his mouth and talks about the script or what they were going to do, I think to myself, well, why the fuck wasn't that done? And I can hear it now. Well, duh, dumbass, because Chadwick died. Well, no, dumbass. Just because Chadwick died does not then mean that you cut the character of T'Challa. These characters live on. You got the Snyderverse people going fucking ballistic because Henry Cavill's not playing Superman. But yet Kal-El is still living on. Kal-El's stories are still going to be told. Understand the difference. T'Challa's stories have been null and void. Meanwhile, you've got a loud, vicious group in the Snyder fans that are making posters of Henry Cavill's Superman holding a decapitated James Gunn's head in his hand with the laser beam eyes, blood dripping from James Gunn's mouth. But we're the toxic crowd. We're the crowd that doesn't know when it's over. We're the crowd that makes it too deep. No, that's not us. So instead of continuously giving us what could have been, this is what it should have been. You want to do your TJ? Do your TJ. But do your TJ with T'Challa. The T'Challa. The fact what he said up there about Shuri trying to grapple with not being able to save her brother, again, it makes no sense to me. That Shuri could heal everybody else. And I can hear it again. Yes, Darius, but that's an unknown illness. She couldn't heal an unknown illness. So you're telling me that Infinity Stones that Infinity Stones were second nature to Shuri? Shuri knew all the ins and outs of Infinity Stones when they laid Vision down on her operating table? She knew all the ins and outs of Infinity Stones? Infinity Stones weren't something that they knew what the fuck it was, what they could do. Only person that knew that shit was Thor. And he taught it to everyone else. Shuri was not one of the ones he taught it to. Now going in line with Shuri is one of the most intelligent minds in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Okay, that's great. So with that intelligent mind, if she could figure out something as alien as Infinity Stones, but she couldn't figure out an unknown illness that her brother got on planet Earth, makes no fucking sense to me. So no, I disagree with that as well. Then he goes on to say, let me see. This one not really that big of a deal, but the whole, was Namor going to be in it, blah, blah, blah. They were saying, yeah, CIA. They, make no mistake, even though he didn't say it, Doom was still in this shit. He was still in this shit. I don't like this whole thing too. Then it cuts ahead 3 years. He is essentially co-parenting. We had crazy scenes co-parenting. I mean, again, that just plays on the tropes, man. That plays on that. Like he's yes, great. Granted, he was absentee because of the blip. But now he's co-parenting, and it's like it's stereotypes. It's that even though that he didn't go for a carton of milk or a thing of cigarettes and never come back, they're still doing the whole co-parenting thing. He's still not present in the household. That's what's important. To get to for audiences, not just audiences, for us too. Damn, to see a strong black household, a strong black family, a strong black king and queen with their now prince son holding it down in Wakanda, showing you what black excellence really looks like. But when he's co-parenting and doing it from his home and she's doing it from her home and little TJ has a stepfather, you're playing on tropes. You're still doing the stereotypical shit. And that's just not something we had to see. You could have just made Wakanda great. You could have just made black excellence great. But instead, you nerfed Wakanda, you played on stereotypes, and you morbidly inserted your feelings into a story where it just simply did not have to be. So, I like this story better. I do. I think that this story is better. But I just don't like. There are still things I don't like about it. I don't like TJ's involvement at T'Challa's hip while T'Challa's saving the day. I don't like that involvement. I don't like TJ's involvement in the film at all. I don't think TJ should have shown up until film 5, film 6, whatever. I like the whole Nakia being remarried thing. Again, that ushers in Storm. I don't like the co-parenting, as you just heard me say. I think that still plays on the stereotypes and tropes and everything like that. But every single time we talk about this, every single time Black Panther franchise comes up in the MCU, I get pushed further and further away. I get pushed further and further away because they continuously show me that T'Challa's not coming back for people that keep saying he is. They continuously show me that they don't give a damn about this character. So it is what it is. As you heard me say with anything that comes on with MCU now, it is what it is. I want to see if there's something else in here I missed. Yeah, again, like I said, the whole father-son story, I don't mind that for film 5. I don't mind that for film 6. But in a film where we still don't even know who the fuck T'Challa really is within the MCU, him trying to figure out who he is, the character study, as Ryan Coogler called it, the character study, deep diving into his psyche. You can look up the original. You can look up the other interview from a few months ago when he talked, not even a few months ago, it might have been a month ago, where he talked about the original script. Toussaint wasn't mentioned. None of this was mentioned. Now again, this could be because of spoiler territory, but none of this was mentioned. He said that it was going to be a character study, a deep dive into T'Challa's psyche, learning who T'Challa was as a character. How are we learning who T'Challa? How are we going to learn who T'Challa is as a character while he's trying to learn who he is as a character, also while trying to be a father to a kid who he hasn't even met, a kid who didn't even know of his existence, a kid that's 5 years old at this point. A kid that he's in and out of his, I don't even want to say in and out of his life. A kid that he doesn't live with because him and Nakia don't live together. Nakia's, remarried and all that shit, or married. How are we going to learn anything about T'Challa while he's trying to learn things about himself, while also trying to be a father, while also trying to save the world, while also trying to be king of Wakanda, while also being Black Panther, while also dealing with the struggles within Wakanda, while also dealing with the struggles of what he did in first Black Panther by opening up Wakanda? You take TJ out, and you handle all that shit that you left wide open from the first BP. And you bring TJ back into film 5, back into film 6, if you just had to do it. I don't think that there's going to be a time where Ryan Coogler, Nate Moore, Marvel and Company do an interview, because some people might say, well, you could see this as positive. You can't. You can't, because it's a shoulda, coulda, woulda. It's a what if. What's that saying? If ifs and buts was candy nuts, we'd all have a merry motherfucking Christmas, but it's not. So this is a shoulda, coulda, woulda situation. Should they have done this? Absolutely. Could they have done this? Absolutely. They just decided not to. They decided to go with the story that they shoved in our faces for viewers' entertainment. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting every single time one of them get up there and talk about BP, talk about Wakanda Forever, talk about what could have been, talk about their feelings and how they were feeling about how, taking it back to that. I can't look at the next young actor that's not T'Challa and say or Chadwick and say you're T'Challa, but did it anyway. I don't know, man. And again, Coogler has the right to feel the way that he feels about his friend, but he does not have the right to take those feelings for his friend and morbidly insert them into a film for viewers' entertainment when that's not what his friend wanted, when his friend has stated in plenty of interviews what he wanted. When his friend helped write the script, the original script, but again, as I said before, they crumbled it up, threw it away, and said, be damned. They said source material, be damned. Chadwick, be damned. While also whispering and echoing, but this is to honor Chadwick. It was never to honor Chadwick. It was to honor the lining of their pockets. It was to try to reach that $1 billion again, but sadly, when I say sadly on their part, it didn't do that. It was never doing that. with this story, with T'Challa, imagine what these trailers could have looked like. Imagine what this could have looked like on screen. Having T'Challa back in it. Different face, new actor, get over it. You've had how many Supermans, how many Batmans, how many Jokers? You ain't bat an eye, so shut the hell up with that. How many Spider-Mans? You just watched 3 Spider-Mans on screen and everybody was cheering and jumping up and down in their seats, shitting themselves. So miss me with that. You could have accepted a new face as T'Challa stepping in on screen, but you decided to do the opposite. So, as always, question is for you guys. Let me know down below in the comments what you think. What do you think of this story for T'Challa? Could this have been a better story for the film? Could this have been something that you would have actually been interested in? Now again, I'm interested in the story. Even if TJ's in there, I'm still interested. However, you could have done away with TJ, as I said, just until the 5th film, the same way you did Morgan with Tony Stark. Just my opinion. So let me know down below what you guys are thinking of this whole new synopsis, this whole new thing of what would have been Black Panther 2. What would have been a character study and deep dive into the character of T'Challa. What would have been a T'Challa vehicle. What Ryan Coogler called it in the first interview talking about the original script. So let us know down below in the comments what you guys are thinking.
Doubling down on Black Death is a trope we no longer want to handle. Wakanda forever, T'Challa forever. It's never been about the man, so what is we saying? This ain't about Phantom and getting my way. It's all for the love, it's not for the hate. No matter what people are trying to say, we cast T'Challa. We cast T'Challa.